The words hit me like ice water. Ang bobo niya. Hindi niya alam na ginagamit ko lang siya. My wife's laughter, musical, carefree, echoed across the restaurant's private dining room as she spoke to her mother in Tagalog. She had no idea I understood every syllable. He's so stupid. He doesn't know I'm just using him. I kept my fork steady, cutting into my steak with surgical precision, my face a mask of polite interest as her mother responded in the same language I'd spent 2 years secretly learning. The language of my wife's heart. The language she thought kept her secrets safe. My name is Dashiell Moreau, and I'm what you'd call a safe choice. At 34, I'm a senior compliance officer at a mid-sized pharmaceutical firm in the suburbs of Portland. Steady income, good benefits, predictable life. Nothing flashy, nothing that turns heads, which was exactly why Celestine Reyes had chosen me. We'd met 3 years ago at a charity fundraiser I'd been dragged to by my college roommate. She was breathtaking, the kind of beautiful that makes you forget your own name. Filipino-American, with dark eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies and a smile that could melt steel. She worked in consulting, she'd said, international clients, high-stakes negotiations. I was mesmerized. Our courtship was a whirlwind. She pursued me with an intensity that felt like destiny. 6 months later, we were married in a beautiful ceremony that her family flew in from Manila to attend. Her mother, Pachita, barely spoke English. Her cousins, aunts, uncles, they'd switch seamlessly between English and Tagalog, sometimes mid-sentence. I'd smile and nod, the awkward American husband who couldn't participate in half the conversations at his own wedding. "Don't worry about it," Celestine had assured me, squeezing my hand. "They're just talking about boring family stuff. You're not missing anything important." I'd believed her. God help me, I'd believed everything. The first crack appeared 6 months into our marriage. I came home early from a conference. Food poisoning had sent half the attendees to their hotel rooms, and found Celestine on the phone, speaking rapid-fire Tagalog. When she saw me, she switched to English mid-word, her expression flickering with something I couldn't quite name. "Just my mom," she'd said brightly, checking in about her arthritis medication. But something in her tone had felt off, like a violin string wound too tight. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment, the way her face had shifted, the abrupt language switch. It probably meant nothing. Couples were entitled to privacy, to conversations with their families in their native tongues. But the seed was planted. I started paying attention. How she'd take calls in the other room. How conversations would halt when I entered a space where she was talking with her mother or cousins. How she'd laugh at jokes I couldn't understand, her eyes dancing with a secret, knowledge that excluded me from my own marriage. "What's so funny?" I'd ask. "Oh, you know how Filipino humor is," she'd say, waving a dismissive hand. "It doesn't translate well." I started learning Tagalog on my lunch breaks. Rosetta Stone at first, then podcasts, then online tutors from the Philippines who I'd Skype with at 6 a.m. before work, telling Celestine I'd taken up early morning meditation. I was methodical about it, the same trait that made me good at my job. I kept notebooks hidden in my office desk. I practiced pronunciation in the car during my commute. I told myself I was doing it to connect better with her family, to surprise her on our anniversary, to be a better husband. I was lying to myself. 6 months of intensive study, then a year, then 18 months. I became fluent enough to understand casual conversation, to catch the nuances, the idioms, the cultural references embedded in the language. And I never told her, because by then I'd started to hear things, little things. Her cousin Maria asking when she'd finally be done with this phase. Her mother mentioning the timeline in a way that made my stomach clench. Celestine assuring them to just wait a little longer. Waiting for what? tonight was supposed to be special. Our third anniversary dinner at Brasserie Montmartre, an upscale French restaurant in downtown Portland. Celestine had insisted on booking the private dining room. Intimate and romantic, she'd said. When we arrived, her mother was already there. "Surprise!" Celestine had exclaimed, kissing my cheek. "I know we usually celebrate alone, but Mom flew in from LA to see us. You don't mind, do you?" What could I say? I'd smiled, hugged Pachita, ordered wine. And now I sat here, the dutiful son-in-law, while they discussed me in a language they thought I couldn't understand. "Dalawang taon na lang," Pachita was saying. 2 more years. Pagkatapos makukuha mo na ang lahat. Then you can get everything. Celestine swirled her wine, the candlelight catching the massive diamond on her finger. The ring I'd spent 3 months' salary on. Naiintindihan ko. Pero minsan nakakapagod rin. Yes, I understand. But sometimes it's exhausting too. Exhausting pretending to love me? Or exhausting waiting for whatever endgame they'd planned? My phone buzzed. A text from my brother. "Happy anniversary! She's a keeper. You're punching above your weight, bro." I'd always known I was punching above my weight. Celestine was sophisticated, worldly, connected. I was the steady guy with the stable job and the 401k. I'd counted myself lucky every single day. The waitress arrived with our entrees. I watched Celestine transform, her face shifting into that radiant smile, her hand reaching across the table to squeeze mine. "To 3 wonderful years," she said in English, raising her glass. "And to many more, my love." I raised my glass, meeting her eyes, those beautiful, lying eyes. "Walang alam," she murmured to her mother as I took a sip. "Doesn't suspect a thing." The wine tasted like ash in my mouth. I had 2 choices: confront her now, flip the table, demand answers in the middle of this expensive restaurant, or play the game. Wait. Learn exactly what they were planning. Document everything. I'm a compliance officer. I know how to build a case. I know how to gather evidence. I know how to be patient. I chose patience. "This is perfect," I said, cutting into my duck confit. "I'm so glad your mom could join us." Celestine beamed. Pachita nodded approvingly, and I smiled back, the oblivious American husband. But my mind was racing, cataloging every Tagalog phrase I'd heard over the past 2 years, every suspicious phone call, every conversation that had stopped too quickly when I entered a room. "Mahal kita," Celestine said softly, leaning toward me. "I love you." The worst part? I'd believed her when she'd said it on our wedding day. I still wanted to believe her. But belief is a luxury I could no longer afford. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m., careful not to disturb Celestine. She lay on her side, her dark hair fanned across the pillow, looking peaceful, innocent. I studied her face in the dim light filtering through our curtains, searching for some sign of the woman who'd called me stupid over wine and French cuisine. Nothing. Just the woman I'd fallen in love with. I slipped out of bed and went to my home office. The spare bedroom Celestine rarely entered because she found my boring work stuff tedious. Good. That made it the perfect place to start. I began with our finances. As a compliance officer, I knew the patterns to look for: unusual transfers, hidden accounts, unexplained expenses. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 3 years, Celestine had been systematically moving money. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $500 there, from our joint account into an account I'd never seen statements for. The transfers were timed perfectly, always the day after my paycheck deposited, always just under the amount that would trigger alerts on our banking app. She'd been skimming. For 3 years. I pulled up our credit card statements next. The charges painted a picture I'd been too blind to see. Monthly payments to an immigration attorney in Los Angeles. regular transfers to something called Reyes Family Trust, purchases from luxury retailers that I'd never seen her bring home. She must have been shipping them elsewhere. My hands trembled as I opened a spreadsheet and started documenting everything. Dates, amounts, patterns. Then I found the file folder. It was hidden in the back of our bedroom closet, tucked inside a designer purse I'd bought her last Christmas. The purse she'd gushed over, kissed me for, said she'd treasure forever. She'd treasured it, all right, as a hiding place. Inside were documents that made my chest tighten. Her Philippine passport, I'd known about that. But there were others too. Copies of my tax returns, our marriage certificate, my birth certificate, immigration forms with my signature forged on them, and a letter from her attorney dated 2 months ago. Dear Ms. Reyes, regarding your inquiry about the timeline for obtaining permanent resident status through marriage, as discussed, the 3-year marriage requirement will be satisfied on March 15, 2025. After that date, you may file for citizenship independently. Regarding the marital property considerations you raised, Oregon is an equitable distribution state. The paper slipped from my fingers. Green card. She'd married me for a green card. No, it was worse than that. The letter continued, discussing exit strategies and asset protection. She wasn't just using me for immigration status. She was planning to divorce me the moment she got her citizenship and take half of everything I owned. 2 more years. That's what her mother had said at dinner. 2 years until the 3-year marriage requirement was satisfied, plus the processing time. I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, and felt something inside me calcify. The hurt began to crystallize into something harder, sharper. I photographed every document, every page. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a ghost in my own home. I went to work, came home, kissed my wife, asked about her day, and every moment she wasn't looking, I was documenting. I found the emails on her laptop while she was in the shower. She'd been sloppy, leaving herself logged in. Messages to her mother, to her cousin Maria, all in Tagalog. All discussing the American and the timeline and just a little longer. There was another email thread that made me physically ill. Messages to someone named Carlos in Manila. Recent messages. Affectionate messages. I miss you too, Mahal. Just 2 more years of this charade and we can finally be together. The money from the divorce settlement will let us start our life properly. Imagine, a house in Makati, the restaurant you've always wanted. We just have to be patient. Carlos. She had someone waiting for her back home. I'd never been Plan A. I'd never even been Plan B. I was a transaction. A means to an end. A stepping stone in a language I wasn't supposed to understand. I hired a private investigator. Not for me, I had enough evidence. But I needed to know who Celestine really was. What her history looked like. The report came back 10 days later. Celestine Reyes wasn't even her real name. She was Celestine Santos, and she'd done this before. Twice. Once in Chicago with a software engineer named Marcus Webb. Once in Seattle with a teacher named David Huang. Both marriages lasted exactly 3 years. Both ended in divorce shortly after her immigration status was secured. Both men had been left financially devastated. I was husband number 3 in her citizenship scheme. The rage I felt was almost purifying. It burned away the last traces of the man who'd believed in love at first sight, who'd thought he'd gotten lucky, who'd trusted his beautiful wife. I started seeing an attorney. Quietly. A family law specialist who'd handled immigration fraud cases before. You have an incredibly strong case, she said, reviewing my documentation. But you need to be strategic about timing. If you file for divorce now, she could claim abuse, try to get a U visa, stay in the country anyway. We need to coordinate with immigration authorities. So I waited. And I watched. And I played the role of the oblivious husband. But Celestine was smart. She'd stayed alive this long by reading people, by sensing shifts in the wind. It started small. "You seem distant lately," she said one evening, curling up next to me on the couch. "Is everything okay at work?" "Just a big audit," I lied smoothly. "You know how it gets." She studied my face, her eyes searching. For the first time in our marriage, I saw uncertainty there. A week later, I came home to find her in my office. She was standing by my desk, not touching anything, but definitely looking. "Hey, babe," she said, too brightly. "I was looking for the folder with our insurance information. The car insurance is up for renewal." "It's in the file cabinet in the garage," I said, keeping my voice even. "Under auto." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Right, of course. I should have looked there first." That night, she was especially affectionate, touching my arm at dinner, laughing at my jokes, suggesting we book a weekend getaway to the coast. "We never spend enough time together," she said, trailing her fingers along my shoulder. "I feel like we're roommates sometimes, you know? I want to reconnect." I looked at her, this beautiful stranger who'd shared my bed for 3 years, and felt nothing but cold calculation. "That sounds nice," I said. "Let's do it." The next morning, I called my attorney. "How much longer do we wait?" "The immigration investigation takes time," she said, "but we're close. Another 2 weeks, maybe 3. Can you hold on that long?" I thought about 2 more weeks of pretending. 2 more weeks of lying next to someone who saw me as a meal ticket. 2 more weeks of hearing "Mahal kita" from lips that had never meant it. "I can hold on," I said. But that night, everything changed. I came home from work to find Celestine on the phone in our bedroom, speaking in rapid Tagalog. When she heard me on the stairs, she said a quick goodbye and hung up. "Who was that?" I asked casually, loosening my tie. "Oh, just Maria," she said. "Girl talk." I nodded, heading to the closet to change. And that's when I saw it. The designer purse was in a different position. Not much, just a few inches. But I'd photographed this closet. I knew exactly where everything had been. She'd checked the hiding spot. Our eyes met in the mirror. For just a fraction of a second, I saw something in her face. Suspicion, fear, calculation. Then her smile snapped back into place. "How was your day?" "Fine," I said. "Yours?" "Boring," she said lightly. "I missed you." We stood there, 2 people who'd shared a bed for 3 years, lying to each other with our eyes wide open. The game had changed. She suspected something, and I couldn't wait 2 more weeks. It was time to show my cards. "Kailangan na nating mag-usap," I said quietly, not looking at her. "We need to talk." The silence that followed was deafening. When I finally turned around, Celestine's face had gone absolutely white. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. "You," she whispered in English. "You speak—" I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Yes, Celestine, I speak Tagalog. I've spoken it for 2 years." I watched her world crumble in real time. "And I understand everything." Celestine stumbled backward, her hand gripping the edge of our dresser. The color had drained from her face, leaving her looking almost gray in the evening light filtering through our bedroom window. "Dashel. Can you?" I kept my voice level, almost conversational. 3 years of lies deserved more than shouting. They deserved precision. "Can you explain calling me stupid at our anniversary dinner? Can you explain telling your mother I don't suspect anything? Or maybe you'd like to explain the $47,000 you've transferred out of our joint account over the past 3 years?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I'd never seen Celestine speechless before, It was almost satisfying. Or, I continued, pulling my phone from my pocket, we could discuss the emails to Carlos. Mahal, just 2 more years of this charade. Does that ring a bell? You went through my computer? Her voice cracked, and for a moment I saw a flash of anger. The audacity was almost impressive. I did. I met her eyes directly. You forged my signature on immigration documents. You created a fake identity. You married me as part of a systematic fraud scheme that you've run twice before. Marcus Webb in Chicago, David Huang in Seattle. Should I continue? The anger collapsed. She sank onto the edge of our bed, her hands trembling. How long have you known? Long enough. When did you... She looked up at me, and I saw her mind racing, calculating, trying to figure out which conversations I'd understood. How much damage had been done. The dinner. That's when you knew. That's when I confirmed what I'd suspected for a year and a half. I sat down in the chair across from her, keeping distance between us. Did you ever love me? Even a little bit? Or was I always just the means to an end? She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You were supposed to be easy. The honesty surprised me. My first 2 marriages were to men who asked too many questions, she continued, her accent thickening slightly, something that happened when she was emotional. Marcus wanted to meet my family in the Philippines. David started learning Tagalog. They got suspicious too early before I could secure everything. She looked at me, and there was something broken in her eyes. You were perfect, smart enough to have a good job, trusting enough not to question. You loved me so completely that you'd never doubt me. Past tense, I said softly. What? You said loved. Past tense. A tear slipped down her cheek. I didn't expect to feel guilty. With the others it was just business, but you... She wiped at her face angrily. You were kind. You tried so hard to make me happy. You learned my language even when you thought I'd never know. What kind of person does that? The kind who actually loved his wife. I'm sorry. The words came out strangled. I know that means nothing now, but I'm sorry. For all of it. I wanted to feel vindicated. I wanted her apology to mean something. But I just felt tired. Why? I asked. Just tell me why. Was it really just about citizenship and money? Celestine was quiet for a long moment, staring at her. Hands. When I was 16, my father died. We had nothing. My mother, my 3 younger siblings, we were going to lose our house in Manila. I was pretty, so my mother, she made arrangements. An older man, wealthy, willing to sponsor my education in America if I... She swallowed hard. If I was grateful. I felt a chill run through me. I came here on a student visa when I was 17. I learned quickly that beauty was currency, that men would give you things if you knew how to make them feel special. When my visa was expiring, I panicked. Going back meant poverty, meant my siblings would starve. So I found Marcus. It worked. I got my green card, divorced him, sent money home. And then you did it again, and again. My mother's sick. My sister needs surgery. My brother wants to go to university. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading for understanding. Every dollar I took from you went to them, to keep them alive, to give them chances I never had. That doesn't make it right. I know. Her voice broke. I know it doesn't. But when you're drowning, you grab onto anything, anyone. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the laughter at the restaurant, the casual cruelty of Ang Bobo niya, the emails to Carlos, planning her future with money she'd stolen from me. What about Carlos? I asked. She flinched. He was my boyfriend before I came to America. He waited for me after the first marriage and the second. He's been waiting this whole time. So this was always temporary. I was always disposable. Yes. At least she was being honest now. I told myself it didn't matter. That you'd be fine. You'd move on. Find someone who actually deserved you. I stood up, pulled a folder from my desk drawer, and dropped it on the bed beside her. Immigration and Customs Enforcement will be very interested in these documents. The forged signatures, the pattern of fraud, the money transfers. My attorney has already filed a report. Her face went white. Dashiell, please. I also filed for divorce this morning. Fraud invalidates the marriage, which means you won't get a penny in the settlement. In fact, you'll be lucky if you're not facing criminal charges. They'll deport me. The words came out as a whisper. My family should have thought about that before you built your American dream on the backs of men you manipulated. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I know I don't deserve mercy, but my siblings had nothing to do with this. If I'm deported, if I can't send money home, that's not my problem anymore. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't take them back. Didn't want to. Celestine stood, her legs shaky. What happens now? Now you pack a bag. My attorney's already changed the locks. These are temporary keys that work until midnight. After that, you'll need to find somewhere else to stay. Midnight? She looked around our bedroom, her bedroom for 3 years, with wild eyes. That's in 4 hours. Then I suggest you start packing. She moved like a sleepwalker, pulling a suitcase from the closet, mechanically folding clothes. I watched her, this stranger I'd shared my life with, and felt nothing but emptiness. For what it's worth, she said quietly, not looking at me. There were moments that felt real. When you'd surprise me with coffee in the morning, or when you'd listen to me talk about my day. Sometimes I'd forget it was fake. Sometimes I'd wish. Don't, I cut her off. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She nodded, zipping up her suitcase. When she turned to face me, her mascara was smudged, her eyes red. She looked young and scared, and nothing like the confident woman who'd swept into my life 3 years ago. I hope you find someone who deserves you, she said. Someone who loves you the way you should be loved. I hope you find a better way to help your family, one that doesn't destroy people. She flinched, picked up her suitcase, and walked to the bedroom door. She paused there, her hand on the frame. Patawad, she whispered. Forgive me. I didn't respond. After a moment, she walked down the stairs. I heard the front door open, then close. She was gone. I sat in the silence of our bedroom, my bedroom now, and waited for the grief to hit, the anger, something. Instead, I felt light, like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't realized was there until it was gone. My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney. ICE confirmed they're opening an investigation. You did the right thing. Had I? Celestine would likely be deported. Her family would suffer. Carlos would be waiting for a woman who'd never arrive. But Marcus and David had deserved justice, too. And however many other men there might have been that I didn't know about. I walked to my desk, pulled out the Tagalog study materials I'd kept hidden for 2 years. Notebooks filled with verb conjugations, flashcards with vocabulary, audio files where I'd practiced pronunciation. I'd learned a language for love. I'd uncovered a betrayal through patience. I'd protected myself with the same methodical attention to detail that made me good at my job. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 months later, I sat in a coffee shop in downtown Portland, reviewing a deposition transcript. The divorce was almost final. Celestine had left the country voluntarily rather than face deportation proceedings. Her attorney had negotiated that much. I'd gotten my money back through a settlement that garnished her remaining U.S. assets. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. I'd started therapy. Turns out, being systematically deceived for 3 years does a number on your ability to trust. My therapist said I was making progress. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up. A woman stood there, holding a coffee cup, smiling uncertainly. She had kind eyes and an honest face. She wore scrubs, nurse maybe, or dental. Hygienist. "It's all yours," I said, gesturing to the empty chair. "Thanks, everywhere else is packed." She sat down, pulled out a book. "I'm Margot, by the way." "Dashiell?" "Unusual name. I like it." We fell into easy conversation. She was a pediatric nurse at OHSU. She'd moved to Portland 2 years ago from Minneapolis. She loved hiking, terrible reality TV, and Thai food. She didn't speak Tagalog. She didn't have a secret agenda. She was just nice. When she asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime, I hesitated. The old wounds were still fresh. The trust was still broken. But I thought about the man I'd been 3 years ago. Eager to believe, quick to love, desperate to be chosen. And I thought about the man I was now, cautious but not cynical, wounded but healing. "I'd like that," I said, "but full disclosure, I'm coming out of a really complicated situation. I might be terrible at this for a while." Margot smiled. "Full disclosure, I just got out of a 5-year relationship with someone who turned out to be a compulsive liar, so we can be terrible at it together." I laughed. Actually laughed. It felt good. "Dinner sounds perfect," I said. As I walked home that evening, the Portland rain misting around me, I thought about languages. How I'd learned Tagalog to understand my wife's secrets. How the language of betrayal had taught me fluency and self-protection. But maybe it was time to learn a new language. The language of starting over, of trusting carefully, of building something real, brick by brick, word by word. "Naiintindihan ko ang lahat," I said quietly to myself. "I understand everything." And for the first time in 3 years, I actually did.